because he was also part of a prison gang. And so when his homeboys would come down there with him, he would like basically tell me, you have to look down. You can't look at these men. Even if some guy walked in front of me and I had to look up to see he doesn't step on me, he will slap me and make me look down. So I was trained to always look on the floor and not make eye contact with anybody. And that's a sign, like that's a huge sign. Like if you're working with somebody and they're always looking on the floor, that's a huge sign that something's going on. And that's one of my reasons why I applied for Berkeley, the Master's in Public Affairs program, because I want to start changing up the training system, like how law enforcement gets trained, how probation officers get trained. They need to see this type of stuff. I had a few probation officers and a parole officers, you know, when I was in my older years. And I've never made eye contact with them. I was so embarrassed. You know, I couldn't look at the men in eyes because I felt like they were either trying to have sex with me or undress me. And that was just that mentality I developed through my trafficker. And they always assumed it's because I was a dope fiend or I was a drug addict, not because I was a trafficking victim. The physical abuse started to happen. There was times I tried to escape and he will like run after me, drag me back to his house. So I didn't try to escape anymore because he started to get physical. And I'm like, well, this is not what I signed up for. But I was already stuck with him. I was already in love with him. At one point I did call my dad and say, Dad, I want to come home. And I was crying hysterically and I wanted to come home. And he said, well, if you don't come back home tonight, don't ever come back again. And he said, you put yourself in that situation. And so when you tell a child that, they're not going to come back. So I never went back to my dad. And I wasn't going to go back to my mom's because I ran away from her from the first place. So I was like, well, where do I have to go? I have nowhere to go. So I was stuck with this man because people ask me, why didn't you escape? There's reason why behind that. You're trapped on leaving or you're brainwashed and he always tells you nobody else wants you. You obviously ran away from something in the first place. So you have no family. You're better off with me. And so that's what I believed. Eventually he ended up getting arrested. And when he got arrested, he sent an older woman to me. And she was from the same prison gang. You know, they were friends, but I didn't think of it like that. So when he sent her to me, she told me, hey, you need to make money for your boyfriend. You need to take care of him. You need to step it up. You need to pay for the bills because he was the one taking care of me. But now that he was locked up, I had to take care of him and myself. I said, okay, well, what do we need to do? I said, I'm down to do whatever. Like, let's rob stores, let's rob people, whatever. Like I was down to do that. And because I was surviving, you know, that was my mentality. But she said, no, you're going to sleep with Johns. And I said, what? Sleep with people? I don't want to sleep with men. She said, you have to. I said, well, can I just rob them? And this girl was super big. You know, she was like, I want to say in her 40s, 50s, but I was tiny. If you would see one of my mugshots when I was young, I was super tiny, you know, and she was super huge. But I was willing to rob the Johns while she takes the money. That's how desperate I was. I didn't want to sleep with them. But she told me it was part of the game and it was the rules of the streets and I couldn't break the codes of the streets. So I had to obey by that. That's what I did. She showed me what to do and I ended up sleeping with Johns. The city, I don't know if you know San Francisco, but in San Francisco, it's like a miniature New York. She left me on 16th and Cap. It's like one of the bad areas in San Francisco. So she left me down there because she had an emergency and I was with these Johns by myself because she was the one protecting me, telling them you had to pay or telling people I'm her wifey, like don't nobody touch her. So I did feel protected. But when she left, I felt like, okay, well, I need to defend myself. So there's this man that came and he said, I have $200 for a date. So I was being sold for $60. So when that man told me $200, I'm like, oh, that's like 4 cars. And, you know, and so basically I don't have to sleep. That's less men I have to sleep with. So let me rob this John. So I got in the car and mind you, I'm 16 at this time. You know, 16-year-olds are supposed to be at homecoming dances, quinceañeras, Sweet 16. But I'm being sold at the corner of 16th and Cap and I'm having to get in this car and rob this John at knife point. I got in the car and I pulled my knife out and I robbed him. I put the knife to his neck. I said, give me your money. And he looked at me and he could tell I was scared. You know, you can tell and you can sense when somebody's in so much fear. And he obviously knew I was a little girl because he sat there and looked at me. He said, I'm not giving you nothing. I said, give me your money. And I kept, it felt like forever that I was in that car and he was driving around in circles. And I finally got rough with him. I finally said, you know what, if you don't give me your money, I'm going to cut you. I'm going to slice you. And so eventually he ended up giving me the money. And so when I got the money, I demanded him to drop me off. And he eventually, like, I was able to escape that car. Like he would not pull over. And eventually I was able to get out. And so I was walking and he followed me. And I told a pedestrian, I said, hey, and I was like saying, oh, this guy, I was a little girl, you know, I was adolescent and I just cried and say, hey, this guy keeps following me. I didn't tell the man what I just did. I was telling him, I was saying, hey, this guy keeps following me. Can you help me? He said, hey, leave her alone. She's a kid. Leave her alone. So he takes off. And so I'm running and I flagged down a taxi because that was very scary for me. So I flagged down a taxi and I got in the taxi's car and I looked at the money because I'm like, okay, let me count the money, because I didn't even count the money when I was in the car. I just took it and I took off. And I got in the taxi and I looked at the money and it was fake money. I didn't see that because it was at night. When I noticed it was fake money, I started crying. I was crying. I was like, oh my God, I just did that. And then I started crying even more when I realized I was about to sleep with him and it was fake money. I felt so betrayed. I felt dirty. Like there was so much stuff that came up for me. And the taxi man was like, hey, I don't know what you're going through, but I'm being told, God's telling me to pray for you. And so for me, my higher power is God. I believe in God, and that's what works for me, and that's what helped me in my healing process, having a relationship with God. But for many years, I was angry with him. I felt like, well, where were you at all those times when I was being raped, when I was being sold, being beaten? All those times, where were you at? I know I went through all of that, and that's bad, but now it's being used for good. Now I'm able to give people hope. Now I'm able to shed light. So everything I went through is being used for the better, and I'm okay with that. And honestly, he protected me. I could have died in all those situations, and I'm alive today. So I realized that I was being protected. That's my belief. I let him pray for me because I was desperate. That woman, I ended up meeting up with that woman again, and the money was supposed to be mine, right? But she ended up taking my money, so it was her money, not mine. So eventually, my boyfriend got out of jail, and she ended up leaving, disappearing. And so when he got out, I told him what happened. I felt like I needed to because I was really loyal. And I said, babe, I need to tell you what happened. And he started crying. He played the role. He said, I can't believe you did that to me. But obviously, in reality, they knew what they were doing. They were tag teaming it. But I was naive. And when he cried, he super manipulated me. And he said, well, if you did it for her and if you love me, you can do it for me too, because we need to make money and we need to get on our feet. I said, okay, yeah, I'll do whatever you want me to do to prove my loyalty and to prove my love, because I felt so bad that he was crying. So he dressed me up, put high heels on me, and he took me back out to 16th and Mission, 16th and Cap, and 20th and Shotwell. So he took me back out there, and he was selling me into multiple cars, multiple shacks, and just, it was killing me inside. Like every time I slept with the John, it killed me because I was like, my boyfriend's out there collecting the money. Like this was only supposed to be a one-time thing, because he would tell me, we're just going to go out there one time, make the money and go get drugs and sell it. But he ended up losing the dope, or he ended up smoking it. He was smoking crack, and I would catch him and I would beg him to stop. And then he kept doing it. So he always kept me out there. Like it was just a one-time, it was supposed to be a one-time thing, but it ended up being over and over. And that's what traffickers do. They tell them, hey, just this one time you make your money and we're going to flip it and we're going to, continue to do what we're going to do. And you don't have to go back out there no more. But it's a lie. You have a debt you need to pay. So pay off this debt and you're good to go. But then it's like a debt gets bigger. There was times where, when I was sleeping with these Johns and they were rotating into this shack, I was in this shack and these men came in and out. And he was out there collecting the money. And there was one situation where the condom broke inside of me. And so I was traumatized because I felt like I just caught AIDS and I just caught hepatitis. I didn't know what was going on. So he took me home. And then at the end of the night, he will bathe me and clean me, And so that was my way of feeling love. I felt love at that time. And when he was doing that, he would tell me he loves me. So it just brought me back to when my mom was doing that to me, and she would tell me she loves me at the end of the night. So I was like, oh, okay, this is fine. So everything that just happened, it's okay because he's holding me now. He's loving me. He's showing me some type of attention, affection. So it was okay. And that was a mindset I had developed at a very young age. Eventually, he ended up getting arrested again. And so I took that into my adulthood. I took, in order for me to survive, I took sleeping with Johns because that was a way for me to make money. I would make just enough money to go buy dope or buy drugs, to sell those drugs. And being a drug dealer, a female drug dealer, you're getting robbed left and right. Being an adolescent at that, and I was still learning, like I still trusted the wrong people. So I would get robbed and didn't realize what was happening. So I realized I couldn't trust nobody. Then I had to go back out there and sleep with more Johns to get more money. I had nobody to protect me. I was ending up having to protect myself. Like he'll get arrested. I had to do that for myself to take care of him and take care of myself. And then there was times that he got out and then he'll get arrested again. And so there was times where I had to rob. I was so desperate and didn't want to sleep with these Johns. Like I was willing to do whatever I needed to do. There was time that he asked me, he said, hey, I need you to get me bail money. I need you to make this much money and bail me out. I'm like, well, I'm not sleeping with Johns, that's for sure. Because I wanted to refrain from that.